Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So we shall talk about cannabis oil. What is in effect extract with organic solvent of female flowering tops, which have different names. Sometimes they call it Rick Simpson oil, but Rick Simpson already mentioned on internet in his video not to use this name. Somebody call it Phoenix tears. But I call it extract. It's simply extract with organic solvent, and it can be very powerful medicine, which can be used by different way. So we can discuss it now with my friends, their experience. I am scientist. I am not treating patients. So we shall start to discuss this. So maybe before your questions, we can start to talk about that. First, for instance, Božo Radišid.
Hello, my name is Božidar Radišid. I'm coming from Slovenia. Yes, we are helping people with spreading information, with organizing seminaries in Slovenia and also in Balkan. Unfortunately, cannabis is still unavailable in Slovenia, but awareness among people is very high, and most or majority of oncological patients are also on cannabis treatment. Actually, in treatment with cannabis, we all notice very good results, and I think Lumír well explained why cannabis work on so wide range of diseases, because on my opinion cannabis doesn't cure directly any disease, but it brings body on the level when it can cure itself. In Slovenia is approximately 30 or more thousand people on illegal cannabis, and we say so many times it's better be illegal alive than legally dead. So if you have any question later for me, I will.
Good evening. My name is Corrie Yelland. I'm from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I'm one of those people that's illegally alive. I was diagnosed with terminal cancer about 6 years ago now. I used cannabis oil. I did not have any radiation or chemotherapy. I've been cancer-free, confirmed cancer-free for just over 5 years. I work extensively with people all over the world who are seeking help. Not only with cancer, but other disease conditions, and I've seen amazing, amazing things. I'm very happy to be here. Prague is awesome.
Dobrý den, já jsem Jindřich Bayer.
English.
Sorry. Forgot. My name is Jindřich Bayer, and I'm partly responsible for the promotion of the Rick Simpson oil or cannabis extract in the treatment of cancer. We started this show in about 2008, 2009, and since then the knowledge about cannabis as a cure or medicine for cancer has spread around the world with the use of social media, etc. So let's hope it will happen and that laws will change so that we could finally do the studies. So that's about all I would say for the beginning, and if you wish to ask us anything about the practice of cannabis oil medicine, we are here for you.
So I'm sure that you know protocol, which wrote Jindra. And we know that this cannabis oil you can use by different way. You can swallow it. You can use it in vegetable oil to put it under tongue. You can use it for preparation of suppositories, which you can use per rectum, per vagina. So you can use it also in cream, and you can use it topically. So there are different possibilities. Of course, everything depends on the type of disease and of the type of use and of the type of strain which you are using, which main compounds are in this extract. So it's after that different effect on our body. So, Božo, you want?
Yes. I want to say that actually this story about cannabis and about researchers, it's actually they're doing everything to postpone and to get cannabis into pharmacies or to the patients. Lumír mentioned before 35-year-old study of Dr. Meshulam in Sao Paulo, if I remember well. We did 3 or 4 years ago the same study about the epileptic kids with Dr. Paul Hornby and Professor Dr. David Neubauer and myself. We presented this in Sestri Levante, I don't know which year it was, a few years ago, and again nothing is happening. I think why is cannabis not so widely used is because of mostly doctors are not aware of therapeutical use. I was talking with Dr. Kurt Blas a month ago on Cultiva in Vienna, and under their researches, 70% of the population know about therapeutic use of cannabis, and just 4% of medical doctors, they know about therapeutical use. In Slovenia, I also followed the patient with glioblastoma. It doesn't matter if we provide them concentrate or mostly they do it by themselves. It was on 10 patients. I present this study last year, and I have to say that still after 3 years of using oils, all 7 of them are still alive and in very good condition. We help people also with all possible diseases you can imagine, from autism to one of the very last cases, very severe cases, was Xenoderma pigmentosum. It's a very rare genetical disease, and the guy, he's from Zimbabwe, Harare, had hundreds of small melanomas on his nose and head. After 3 and now 6 months of treatment, he is almost completely melanoma free. His lips grew back, and this is something amazing because until now Xenoderma pigmentosum was uncurable disease. And also Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, all possible, especially autoimmune diseases are very good responding on cannabis treatment.
Božo, if you can tell us also concerning this treatment, how they use it, what was like favorite use?
Yes, in Slovenia is cannabis use, as I said, very widely spread, and most of the patients using cannabis as a rectal or vaginal suppositories, because in this kind of application you can applicate much more because of the pharmacokinetics of delta-9 THC in the human body. Because if you ingest oral, there will be on the sudden a lot of delta-11 in producing in liver, but if you use it rectally, the delta-9 THC will come into the bloodstream and it will come not on the sudden in one portion to the liver. So even the older patient, like 80 or more years old, usually don't have any problems with using suppositories. And of course, this is the main use, but the secondary use of cannabis, it depends on the condition of the patient. It depends what is the problem. Glioblastoma patients, they used a nasal spray with high concentration of THC, because it's very good absorption through the nose, or how you call it, yes, and it's penetrate all the labial veins directly to the brains, and brains are full of CB1 receptors, so it works very well.
Maybe Indra.
Suppositories are great from my perspective. Of course, they're secondary. They're an addition to eating the oil, especially in the treatment of cancer and the most serious conditions. But suppositories are great. I was one of the first here in Europe to start promoting them. I would add frankincense, myrrh, and hops extracts to the suppositories because you want to combine them. Even when you make ordinary suppositories, we would always add lavender to it and other herbs because it's very good. But I personally would not rely on suppositories only. I would try to make sure that the patient eats the oil too. But if they like to use suppositories only, and if it works for them, fine. It's great for the beginning of the treatment, and it's a great part of the treatment. But for me, eating massive doses of the oil is the best way to go.
It's of course very interesting, but I would like if you can tell us if you met also with some unsuccessful cases.
Not everybody survived, of course. Corrie could tell us about many people who have passed away.
No, I don't think terminal stage. It can happen, but
it's not
like that. The response was not by patients. This I mean.
I don't. My hands-on practical experience is very small. It's few dozens of patients over the years. The rest was over social media. So I had we don't know what they're using, how they are doing it, and what they are doing.
Okay, Božo can tell us anything about that?
About the?
If are unsuccessful cases.
No,
was no response.
I noticed in my practice, I have to tell in last maybe 5, 6 or 10 years, I helped thousands of people, and people are responding very, very personally. So there is not two persons who responds the same, and I think this is all the stage because of the state of endocannabinoid system. Some people, they get cured very quick. Some people, they need much more oil, and unfortunately some of them died. But majority of people, I have to say, they are very well.
I was just asking because it's clear that if a response wasn't positive, so it can happen if patient use just oil, which is not exact oil, which is necessary for this particular disease. But it can be sometimes tuned if it's possible, because like in Slovenia, it's not legal, so it's not such easy like in Israel that a grower can tune for the patient and find the correct strain. And if you cultivate it illegally in some country and then you use it for patient and is not a response which you expected, so it's not such easy to find some another strain.
But I have to know that Slovenian black market is very unusual. We have our own labs. We are cooperating with doctors. And for all patients who we followed, we also have data about the strains, about the THC and CBD content, about the application and everything. But as I say, each and every person is responding very, very individually.
I have to agree. There is no set way to use it. It's different with every single person. In response to people who didn't make it, it's my experience that in every single case, first of all, with cancer, I find the people that don't make it are the people that come to me when they've had all the chemo and radiation, they're extremely ill, their bodies are essentially destroyed. When they don't make it, in every single case that I've experienced, without exception, a family member or whoever has said what a difference the oil made to that person's quality of life, which I think in itself is an incredible gift. If you can see somebody pass on in a gentle, comfortable way as opposed to excruciating pain, I think that's a wonderful gift to give. The situation in Canada with cannabis is really on the edge right now. Canada is supposed to go legal with cannabis in June or July. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because every province is different. But right now it's looking like the latest that I saw is that they're going to tax every gram of oil $1 or gram of cannabis $1, plus the sales tax, plus the GST. So again, it's that whole thing about making money, unfortunately. I'd like to share with you just a couple of stories that I've seen with this cannabis, besides the fact that I'm here. I was given 2 to 4 months to live when I started Cannabis Oil, and I made my own. It was before the days of the Facebook pages. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I used to look at this black tube of cannabis oil and go, this is going to save my life. And yes, it saved my life. One of the very first cases that I helped with was a woman who lived in Serbia. It was her sister who lived in Serbia. The woman lived in London, England, and she had a 5-year-old. The sister had a 5-year-old with a tumor between the skull and the brain. They had sent this child home to die. There was nothing more they could do for her. The child was, for the most part, unconscious, but seizing almost constantly, I think probably from the pressure on the brain. They recognized that it was too late to save the child, but did I think that the oil would stop the seizures? And I said, yes, absolutely, I did. We got them pointed in the right direction. They were able to get some oil, and I thought that that was the end of the story. A year later, I received a very emotional email from the parents thanking me. This little girl was up and playing. The tumor was 70% gone. And they were going to go see relatives on the weekend that they hadn't seen in 3 years. At Christmas, they wrote me another letter saying that they'd changed her name from Anna to Bojana, which apparently, I was told, means little warrior. They sent me a picture of her in her Christmas concert at school, and she was 100% cancer-free. Bojana just celebrated her 10th birthday. Go ahead.
I just want to tell the similar story and about the youngest patient we treated. A girl was born on the 31st of August, 3 years ago, and she was diagnosed with ependymoma, I think, some kind of brain tumor. 70% of brains were in tumor. They removed a bit. They couldn't remove everything. And she became ill with ependymoma with 4 months. So on 31st of December, she was diagnosed. She was 4 months old. We put her, because there was nothing to lose, actually, on through suppositories and some spray, also on 1 gram per day. Small kid with, I don't know, few kilos. And today she is a healthy girl going into the kindergarten, and I think next year she will go to school. And she's completely, after the 6th or 7th MRI, completely cancer-free. We have a lot of stories like this, thousands. But what I think, what we should do more, we know from Lumír mostly that we have 7 or 6 endocannabinoids and 1 compound which mimic endocannabinoids. And until we don't know the level of the endocannabinoids in our body and how our endocannabinoid system works, I think we are still in the dark. Because we all, or scientists, pharmacists, they all want to have some cure or some compound which cure a special disease. It will never happen this way, because only body can cure itself. And as we know, cannabis works very much on immunity, because not just cannabis improve immune system, we have also other plants which contains the similar compounds that cannabinoids. Lumír just published recently something about it. And those are all plants who are improving our immune system, beginning from Echinacea, I think. So maybe Lumír will tell us more about it. And I want to ask Lumír, I was wondering always, I never found the information, what is the ratio between endocannabinoids in our body? We're just talking about 7 endocannabinoids, but we don't talk about the ratio of them in our body.
No, there were studied only absolute concentrations of particular endocannabinoids. Yes. I didn't see study which analyze all possible endocannabinoids and their ratio in the body. Sometimes they can analyze anandamide, or they can analyze 2-AG and so on. And this can be also in different part of the brain. So they can tell you that in this part is this particular amount, but not in this, for instance, in forebrain, or I don't know, or brain core.
But most abundant is which one?
Excuse me?
Most abundant endocannabinoid is anandamide?
Most
that is most.
Anandamide, this was the first endocannabinoid, so mostly is studied anandamide. And then, as I mentioned on my lecture, second is 2-AG, 2-arachidonyl glycerol, because this was first different time, because anandamide is amide, and arachidonyl glycerol is ester. And there are others, for instance, docosahexaethyl ethanolamide, which are isolated, is more active than anandamide. But this was not first compound, this was not second compound, so nobody studied it. It's very rare studies. But so it's unknown. But I would like to return to this cannabis oil. And certain problem is that cannabis oil can be prepared by different way. Somebody can tell you, I have very clean cannabis oil. It has very nice golden color. So, and question is, maybe it's very pure or purified from the point of view of cannabinoids, but maybe just in this particular oil are lost other compounds which are synergic, how we call it, and which have entourage effect. So it's not such easy. So you can have different quality of this cannabis oil when you prepare it by different way, by different solvents. And then you can prepare it by cold way and evaporation, so there are state cannabinoid acids. And you can prepare it by the way that these acids are decarboxylated. So these are neutral cannabinoids, and it can be big difference. And we know today that cannabinoidic acids are also very important medical tools. So if you can tell us, Božo, what is your experience if you work only with decarboxylated cannabis oil, or did you use also non-decarboxylated?
Mostly, because we deal mostly oncological patients, we used mostly decarboxylated products. Because I tried also with non-decarboxylated, but it wasn't really that successful, even for minor diseases.
Yes, it's known today that if you treat cancer, it's very important to decarboxylate, because you need THC and you need certain amount of CBD. CBD is also anti-cancerogenic, but you need a certain amount of CBD as antipsychotic effect, because as I mentioned, in South Africa, strain was no cannabidiol, and acute psychosis in South Africa were higher in the rest of the world. So they found that it's because of lack of cannabidiol. What we found when we analyzed it in 1974, we cultivated in Czechoslovakia South African strain, and there was no cannabidiol. What was a big surprise, and they cultivated also in France, and they found the same result. Because at that time, Laboratory of Narcotics of the United Nations, they sent seeds of South African, Thailand, and Turkey variety to 18 laboratories around the world, and they wanted to compare. Unfortunately, each laboratory did research what they thought that is the most important. And they were supposed to do the same for comparison, but it was not fulfilled, unfortunately. And this is of course important, because if you cultivate it in different parts of the world, this will be, even with from the same seeds, it will be different, and it can be different for treatment. You know, because if, for instance, it's known also in Israel, when particular grower cultivates it in the spring or in the fall, and it's indoor, so it's about the same, but it's not the same. This found we have very good scientists in Haifa, Daddy Meiri, and he has several $1 million instruments, so he can study it very detailedly. And he found that they treated some children, and with the same strain, it stopped to treat. So he checked it and found that there is lack of one compound, which was before. For instance, it was indoor cultivated in spring, and night it was in summer or in fall. And he found that there is lack of one compound. He didn't know what is the compound, but he saw that this is some particular compound. And as soon as this patient had with this compound, again this strain, so it continued
we also noticed something like this Lumír because with the change of the strain at the curing process. We had many examples when people were okay and on the sudden it get worse. And then when I knew what is going on, when they told me, we switched back on the old strain, and on the sudden everything was okay. And this is what I think what confirm my, I don't know, theory or whatever, that we don't know how our endocannabinoid system actually work.
We are still on the start, and it's big problem to study this. For instance, if you could study the same strain or cannabis oil from the same strain cultivated in different parts of the world. I tell you example, I am scientist 47 years on cannabis, and I was in different countries for some lectures, and I saw some very interesting strains. I was tempted to take it just for research, but I was in big risk, because if I go through the United States, I was in Jamaica, where I had a lecture, and natives which use it like sacrament, they took me to the mountains, and I was tempted to take samples. But when I was in Florida, I was very happy that I didn't take it, because when dogs were around me and were trying to smell caryophyllene oxide, so I was happy, because it can close door to the United States for good. So in fact, even if you want to do research, it's not such easy. You are in big risk. And this is the problem why mostly physicians don't want to work with cannabis, because they are afraid. So then they can tell you, no, it's not serious and so on. And this is because they are afraid. So they don't want to have anything with cannabis.
Well, from what I have observed, it seems that hydrocarbon solvents are good for making the oil. Ideal one would be ether, as we have agreed back in 2009 when we did the first Rick Simpson tour. But for practical reasons, working with ether is very dangerous. So that's why we were recommending that light aliphatic naphtha, technický benzene in Czech, because if you get pure, good quality one, it can be very similar to ether in this respect. Of course, you get some solvent residue, but if you use the further heat treatment, 1 hour in an electric oven set at around 135 degrees Celsius, and then another 4 days at around 90 degrees Celsius to make it breathe out, then you can get the purest extract, which you can make at home. From what I know from people from the US who have the opportunity to compare naphtha-made, butane-made, CO2-made, they say that it seems that the naphtha-made extracts work the best for them as a medicine for cancers and for these serious cases. So that's what I know. But again, ideally, you would really combine it. It would be like a whiskey store with 1,000 different bottles, and you pick what works best for you.
And when you prepare extracts, also with solvents can be problems, because they add to solvent stabilizers, And when you evaporate solvent, even if you evaporate it completely, so you concentrate the stabilizers, so it's also not good. So sometimes, you know, also is good if you use alcohol without stabilizers, because if there stay some traces of alcohol, alcohol is edible. So it's no problem for patients.
But it must be edible alcohol, because pharmaceutical alcohol is poisonous. Because it's also the, you know, chemicals in it.
If you use alcohol for spectrometric use, so it's clear, more clean than clean alcohol.
Jindřich, I would also recommend, if on the end of the procedure, if anybody makes his own oil, I will put the hot oil into the vacuum chamber. It brings a lot of solvent still out. I tried a bit back home, and it helps a lot, but it must be hot solvent, so the under the lower pressure it can comes out. It helps a lot.
It can be okay, but again, you will change the quality of the oil a little bit in the vacuum oven. You know?
Not the vacuum oven. And after the decarboxylation, the vacuum chamber, not the oven. Okay. Like for bread, you have vacuum chambers for bread, okay. Or something like this, just to lower the pressure.
Okay. Yeah. No, why not?
So,
Jindřich just said, tell you how to make the oil. I can only tell you what I did. I don't know too much about making oil. The trend in particularly the USA right now is to use Everclear. So that's an alcohol that you drink. So I think it's 99% proof. When I made it, as I mentioned earlier, I was completely on my own. I hadn't even done anything with cannabis since I was like 16 years old, so it was like Alice in Wonderland. But anyway, I used isopropyl alcohol. I do feel that one of the reasons that I was so successful in treating my cancer is that I would just make a little at a time because that's all I could afford. But I would get like a 1/4 ounce of one kind of cannabis and a 1/4 ounce of another. And so I'd have 4 different strains and mix them together, kind of trying to cover all my bases. And I think that played a big part. And when I speak with people, I suggest, if they can, to try and get an oil that is made from more than one strain. When I treated myself, I did oil orally, and I also did suppositories. As Božidar was saying, suppositories are great because in most cases people don't get high, and particularly, well, not just elderly people, but often people are afraid of that, and so they're afraid to use cannabis. Suppositories helps them get over that fear, and once they're over that fear, often then they will start doing it orally.
They stop to enjoy.
Yeah, they stop doing the drugs. But you know, when they say they don't want to get a high, I say, well, what do you think you're doing on fentanyl and morphine and Demerol? That's exactly what you're doing. And I do want to share, I have a fellow that I helped in Germany who had stage 3 prostate, and he helps people now. And when people say to him that they don't want to get high, he says, do you want to get high or do you want to die? And he has a good point.
So, high from suppositories is rare, you know. And suppositories, this is a huge advantage because no smell, no taste, and are many patients which cannot swallow, so they cannot use it orally.
But I have to tell before, because I can hear Jindřich now. Even in suppositories, you have to start slowly with small doses and upgrade slowly.
Of course.
Even on suppositories, it takes 3 weeks to come or a month to come on a gram a day. You cannot do it over time. And if you get stoned or high on suppositories, you will be high or stoned much longer. That's the problem.
It's a creeper, you know. You will take a suppository, it's okay, you're walking, what's happening, la la la, what? Then you forgot that you actually took the suppository, so you don't know what's happening. Yeah, you may think it's what happened to Simpson actually, because we were testing suppositories with 0.5 gram of cannabis oil in them, 500 milligrams THC or something like that. And that's strong. That's a lot, you know. But for people with lung problems or something with that, that's the best thing you can do for them, because within 20 minutes, you know, you start breathing much better. So for me, suppository is great for the beginning, for overcoming the fears or for breaking the ice. Then after some time, I think it's more economical to eat the oil, especially when you get to the high quantities. Because when you take that suppository with that 0.5 gram and then you fart those 20 minutes later, you just lost 0.5 gram, you know.
Of course, with suppositories you must build tolerance. This is clear, because there is, of course, no danger, because what told us Dr. Bob Melamed, his friend, if I understand good, he used 53 grams THC, pure THC. Orally. Yes. Nothing happened. He only was sleeping 1 week, yes? Yes. But he wasn't endangered, simply. But this is extreme. They tried what is possible for human body, so they found that it's not dangerous.
It's not dangerous. Even in Slovenia, we have many stories with stoned people, you know. It was a party somewhere and, I don't know, 30, 40 people get stoned. But actually, there was no any problems for all those people. Even for kids or older people, when this, you know, feeling gets over, there is no problem at all. You don't even have a hangover from cannabis.
I just wanted to comment on what Jindřich said about lung issues and suppositories. I've played a part in clearing 250 lung cancers. Those were stage 3 and 4 with the exception of 2. And lung cancer patients do extremely well with suppositories. So if any of you have lung cancer, that's the way to go.
And Crohn's disease, and I don't know, all these autoimmune diseases. They are really unbelievable how people get better in a very short time.
I think a part of it, and it's difficult to describe it scientifically, but when you use the good sedative, high THC oils in high amounts, you start feeling some sort of vibration in you. And that, I think that vibration is part of the healing process, because that's how it will resonate with the smallest particles of our bodies. But how exactly that works, that's up to scientists, up to people we admire for being scientists.
You know, we have still, even in science, a lot what to study concerning cannabis. Still is big unknown. You know, still just to develop it on the level, like it will be with other medicine, that we will be on the level of genomic. It means that it will be for particular patient, particular medicine, not like today. If you weigh 200 pounds or 100 pounds, physician tells you 3 times a day 1 pill. It's not reasonable, because it must be per kilogram of weight. Yes, but it's not like that even in legal medicine. So still we are far, because we must understand these entourage compounds. And I hope that I shall study it now. I have a new lab. So I want all these compounds which I was talking about. We want to start to study it quantifically. What is, of course, run on the long distance. Yes, it will not be in half a year, of course. But we hope that in the near future, and legalization can help us, that will be no problem between borders, that we can exchange samples, not only knowledges per Skype, but also real samples, so it can speed up our knowledges. And it can speed up treatment of the patients.
For instance, what happens in the body if somebody eats 1 gram of anandamide? Has anybody tried it?
Look,
I don't know.
When in 22 was discovered insulin, The next year, it was very successful medicine. When in 1935 was discovered cortisone, next year it was wonderful medicine. We discovered anandamide 25 years ago in 1992. It's 25 and a half years already. Oh, yeah. And up to date, it was not used by the human being. There are many volunteers which were ready to try it, but we cannot give them. This can do only rich pharmaceutical company, not university, because to study just one new medicine, it can cost not less than $10 million, and success is about 5%. So even these rich pharmaceutical companies, they go on big risk. And problem is also how was with one compound in Israel. It was very successful. It was in the last stages of study, and people sold houses and cars and bought invest. Yes, and then overnight they gave it to one post-communistic country, and they probably suck results from the thinner. Didn't do it appropriately. So everything was lost, and even if it's probably very good for treatment, so nobody is going to try it again.
And we all know that cannabis is the most safe substance in the world. You can actually not die because of cannabis. You can die earlier of 5 or 7 liters of water than from cannabis.
No, you
and
can die. You can die.
Yes, but you have to.
I have one example. You know, was track full of cannabis stems for fibers, and unfortunately rope was not correct, and it fall on one worker, and he was dead on the spot.
So that one worker is maybe not the reason.
It's true, it's not joke.
Yes, I know, that's the only. But the last year, WHO published the protocol where it said there is no known deaths because of cannabis until now. I think all this ban of cannabis is actually very, I don't know, it's based on unreal data from 100 years ago. The last review of cannabis was done in 1935. UN wasn't there yet. And I think with all this, we should, if they want to have it in pharmacies, okay, but they should not forbid people to grow themselves, for themselves. In Slovenia, we encourage people a lot. More than 50% people are growing, because I don't think that you will find any judge in Slovenia anymore who will prosecute oncological patient, you know, because it's really unethical. And that's the point. Research should be done, yes, but this is not the reason why cannabis is still prohibited, and why user of cannabis are still in some kind of stigma, and you know, that's the problem.
Wise words from you? What's that? Wise words from you? I'm supposed to say some wise words, but I'm not sure what. Talk about the safety of it. The youngest person that I've ever worked with was 2 months old. The oldest was 86, and they're both alive today. The 2-year-old, or the 2-month-old, had retinoblastoma and had a tumor wrapped around her eyeball and was blind. That was in May. Young mommy, single mom. And I think they had given the baby a couple of months. At any rate, by Christmas, that child could see and the tumor was gone. And the oldest person I've ever worked with was 86 years old, and it was the first person I ever helped. And she was colorectal cancer with metastasis, and she's still going strong. So, you know, I have to be clear, this is not a miracle cure-all for everything, but it sure as heck is a lot better than the pharmaceuticals that are out there, and has a far higher success rate.
If it doesn't help, what are rare cases, so it doesn't harm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always say,
different with other pills.
I always say, show me a disease condition that cannabis doesn't at least help. I'm yet to see one.
That's how it is.
Okay, thank you that you were such patient, and have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.